At the Texas Tribune Festival this September, 3 journalism school deans, Rachel Davis Mersey, Graciela Mochkofsky, and Jelani Cobb, discussed key issues in the field. They focused on the safety of student journalists, the impact of social media, and journalism's relevance today. Recent protests at U.S. universities over the Israel-Palestine conflict have raised safety concerns about around-the-clock reporting by student journalists.
They need to understand the state of the industry, they need to understand the history, they need to understand the inequities and the structural problems, and they need to understand the context in which they're going to be a reporter or an editor or a publisher or a product manager now. And in that context includes a very new threats, and like physical threats, digital threats, that are very real and that are actually pushing people out of the industry.
The deans emphasized the need for journalism to engage with social media to reach wider audiences. However, they highlighted challenges in conveying information truthfully amid the risk posed by a faceless news outlet, where interpretation and use of information is often beyond control of the reporter.
Just that they think about news differently. They don't turn on the morning television like you might to see the weather. They get that on their phone, but it doesn't mean they're not exposed to information.
Mainstream media doesn't have necessarily the same concern for disenfranchised groups. And I think student journalists, what you're doing, what journalists at the University of Texas are doing, is balancing care for the community and accurate information. It's about including a variety of voices in this story. It's about making sure that the stories are whole, that the pictures are fair, that they represent all the facts on the ground. And I think the closer you can be to the subject matter, like as you can as a student when you're immersed in it, can help you do that really well.
Maintaining relevance in a changing world is a long-standing challenge for journalism. Issues once limited to corporations and governments have now infiltrated the field. Jelani Cobb notes that when journalism becomes too distant, it risks losing trust by failing to maintain local connections.
If you go back through American history, Americans have always distrusted large, powerful, anonymous institutions. In the 19th century, they distrusted the railroads because the railroads were the most powerful entity in the economy. In the early 20th century, they distrusted the banks. Now it is media. People don't have a local kind of version of this. What they see is CNN, the New York Times, NBC, these huge entities, and they think of them the same way they thought of banks or railroads for reasons that should be utterly predictable to us. The decline of trust in media is led by the decline in local news.
In a world that requires adaptability and resilience, the passion of new journalists and the commitment of journalism educators can provide a hopeful path forward. Encouraging dialogue, embracing diverse perspectives, and upholding values of truth and integrity can lead to a positive future for journalism.
I knew I was wanting to be a journalist since I was 8. And I've always been a journalist. It's an incredible profession. It's all about service, but it's also a very exciting way to live because you're always going into people's lives, and you're looking at how flour works, you're looking at how the economy works and the world works, and so it makes your life bigger. It's one of those professions in which you feel you're always learning something new. It's very exciting intellectually, but it's also a lot of fun.
Because it's important to say that it's okay for us to disagree, but we're going to do that in a civil way. I grew up in a household, my father was quite conservative and my mother was quite liberal, and we used to have those arguments around the dinner table, and we still all loved each other when we left the dinner table. And I think that piece, if we can get back to the ability to have those conversations, to politely disagree, to challenge each other, to sometimes move our opinions to be more like one another when someone influences us, that's really what I'm looking for.